Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with West Palm Beach, Florida-based jazz guitarist and vocalist Phil Fest. We caught up with him to talk about his life in music and his latest 2021 CD, Cafe Fon Fon. He was born in Minneapolis and grew up in a musical family. His background and training give his musicality a unique twist uncommon for his generation. His father is a recording artist and his mother is a composer and music instructor. He was exposed to Brazilian and American jazz right from the start. He's got a great story. Enjoy.
How you doing? Right on time. Punctual.
Yes, that's how we do it.
Yeah, baby.
Cool. Hey, thanks for taking a minute out, man.
Oh, well, thank you. My pleasure.
You got a great story, but let's start off with the latest 2021 CD, Cafe Fon Fon, and talk to me a little bit about this coming out during a pandemic. Was that anything that was on your radar? How do you feel about that?
I started, I hadn't put anything out since 2015, right? So for the past couple of years, I was kind of, I've got to do something. And with my life, the past 5 years, well, not 2020, of course, but going down to Brazil and playing at the Cafe Fon Fon, I met my wife there. So it was just kind of like, you know what, I'm going to record, and some of the material we were doing there, and I said, I'm going to record a record, kind of a time capsule, if you will, of the last few years, based around the theme of this place, right? So I started tracking a few months right before the pandemic. So I actually the pandemic, we were just starting to hear about it, right, in late 2019. And hopefully I'm answering your question right. And I finished tracking in February right before, I finished tracking it the first week of March, right before everything shut down, is when I actually finished tracking. And then the pandemic hit a week later.
It's part of, the construction of this, but it's also, it's coming out during a time where you can't tour, but it's one of the only ways you can, reach out to fans.
It is. So what happened was, so I finished tracking. So, it was, the whole COVID-19 thing was on the radar when we started tracking, because I started recording in late November of 2019. So, and then I would get in with whoever was available. So, so we were already hearing news about it, and I was already kind of like, is this going to be a big deal? Is this going to hit us? Is this only going to last a few weeks? If it does, we didn't know anything, right? So, and then I finished the actual recording, the tracking, if you will, but then the pandemic hit, and then everything shut down. So all of a sudden, no money was coming in, and it was just, I didn't even think about the record it wasn't until August, this past August, where I called my engineer and said, hey, we've got to, I really want to finish this. There's no output. I got to put this out. I've got to release it. And, that's kind of what happened.
So you're from Minneapolis, and if we talk about, we've dealt with the pandemic, but we've also dealt with an epicenter of a very strong racial and class war that's going on, and it's ramping back up there. Add that on top of it, coming from Minneapolis. Talk to me a little bit about your feelings on your hometown and just the world.
Yeah, that is tragic. It breaks my heart to see what's been happening up there, and I'm still friendly with a lot of people up there. I haven't lived in Minnesota for a long time, but I do go back when I can and to visit, and it's just the whole thing. And I think it all started really heated up around July last year with the George Floyd thing. Yeah, here's the crazy thing is that not only is that happening in my hometown, but down in Brazil right now is also the worst place for COVID, and specifically Porto Alegre, the hometown of my parents, where the Cafe Fon Fon is, happens to be per capita the worst hit region of the COVID. So it's kind of like a double whammy between the Minneapolis thing and the COVID thing, down there with the hometown of my parents. So that did weigh on me, and it's just one of those things. Just got to put out, just pray for positivity and just hopefully put out light energy.
So talk to me about your childhood. How did music become a part of your world?
All right, you may or may not know this, but my father was Manfredo Fest. He was a Brazilian jazz, one of the pioneers of bossa nova piano. His first recordings down in Brazil on the RGE label started in the early 60s, I think 1962. So at home, it was music nonstop, and specifically this type of music, and jazz in general. And my mother being a, composer and piano instructor, it was nonstop music at my house growing up. So I was exposed to music from the get-go.
So who were some early influences on you, early musical influences that really got you going?
As a guitarist, my earliest influences for guitar, while all this music was going on at my house, my earliest musical influences were really rock and roll, guitar-oriented rock and roll bands. Kiss, fans like that. When I was 9-10 years old, I just heard the sound of those electric guitars and just was like, wow, what is that? It was so different than what was going on at my house. At my house it was piano and, this and that and Fender Rhodes, and all of a sudden I'm hearing these power chords with distortion. I didn't even know what it was. It just sounded so cool to my ears. And so my earliest influences on me as a musician were guitar-driven rock and roll.
What was the first live show you saw that made you think, that's what I want to do? I want to get up there and do that.
The first live show? That's a really good question, because I was probably when my dad was the musical director of Bossa Rio, which was the offshoot band of the Sergio Mendes Brazil 66. And I remember going to those shows when I was really young. I'm talking 3-4 years old, and just mesmerized by the whole spectacle. And that was probably the inception of me being, wanting to one day, be on stage making music. Didn't know, if I'd play an instrument or what. I was really more drawn to percussion and drums when I was at that age. So probably those shows right there, the Bossa Rio shows in Brazil 66.
If you have a dream tonight and you could run into your younger self right around the time you were going to become a professional, when you were very young, and you could give your younger self a bit of advice, what would it be?
It would be stay home and practice more. That would be my advice. Yeah. I would say you don't need to go out every night. Because when I was younger, I used to love going out at night. So, and who doesn't, right? So I would say, you know what? You don't need to go out tonight. Stay home and write a song or woodshed. Work on these concepts. That's what I would tell myself.
What have been the most surprising developments in the world of music that you've witnessed as a professional over all these years?
The whole internet thing, and especially in the last 5 to 10 years, 10 years, just everything just being available online has really just been, because it wasn't like that for me for so long. So for me, just the way it's all changed, and, those of us that have, that receive some royalties for original compositions, and, my father passed away already, so I control that, all those copyrights and the publishing of that. So just to see the dramatic drop-off in revenue, not that the revenue was huge to begin with, being jazz-oriented music, but just to see the dramatic drop of nobody's really able to control all the different streaming going around the world. There isn't really one entity that's really got their finger on everything that's happening. So all these companies, ASCAP, BMI, Harry Fox, Sound Exchange, you things trickle in, but it's kind of the Wild West right now. That's been the biggest shock to me.
The thing about being in quarantine and going through this lockdown is it's been a very intense time for people to really look within and learn about themselves and figure some things out. What did you figure out about yourself that maybe you didn't really realize until this happened?
You know what? I would say that's a great question, too. I would say that for me, it was rediscovering what aspects of music was coming back to that original, I'm also not only, I put out records and I'm a Brazilian jazz artist, but I'm also a working musician in South Florida down here. This is a working musician's paradise. So, and what do I mean by that? That means that I back up shows, I play in orchestra pits, musicals come through town, so and I can read the charts. So I do a variety of things. So, it was kind of rediscovering my bliss because now I wasn't doing 25 functions a month anymore, so I had time to sit down and rediscover my passion and what it is exactly that is my passion and what brings me just unconditional happiness, what types of music, and that's what, it really helped me discover that, because all of a sudden I didn't have to, do 25 functions a month and spend half my days in the cars getting to and from rehearsals and shows.
So if you could get into a time machine, we get off the phone and a DeLorean pulls up in front of your house, and you can punch in the digits.
Hey, that movie came out. That movie came out when I was in high school. So
I was in junior high when that came out. So yeah, that was a part of my lineage. But
junior high, the fact that you even said junior high, not middle school, that's a good sign.
Right. That's right.
There you go. See, you dated yourself. I love it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that minor peccadillo, but it's totally true, because I remember when they started saying middle school, I'm like, what are you talking about? Middle what?
What are you talking? Me too. Well, what year did you graduate high school, off the record?
91.
Okay, I'm 86, so, we're like 5 years apart. Yeah. So, if I could, repeat the question. If the DeLorean pulled up, Michael J. Fox, I can go anywhere. Uh-huh.
Yeah. The dogs in there, docs in there. You can go wherever you want. You can see anybody live. Who are you going to see, and who would you want to talk to after the show?
Oh, my God. That's a great question. All right. I'll tell you what. I'm going to divide that into two, okay, since my whole thing is the Brazilian-American dichotomy. All right. I would love to be able to go to Rio de Janeiro, probably 1958, 59, and, probably run into, João Gilberto and Antônio Carlos Jobim, playing at some little, club facing, the beach there in Rio and just, Copacabana. And, that would probably be one. And the other would be, on the American side of things, probably witnessing, one of the jazz greats, probably around the same time period in New York City. Being able to witness, as a guitarist, I would have loved to have been able to have met Wes Montgomery. Probably, maybe not, maybe that would have been early 60s, but with the Riverside recordings. So, probably those two artists right there.
Why do you love, for the purposes of our jazz show here, why do you love jazz?
I love jazz because of the sophistication of it, plus yet mixed with the reckless abandon of it. So to me, jazz it's almost like pure rock and roll, where it's, to me, it's almost the same thing where, and by that I mean, within the frameworks, you can really be creative and do your own thing. But at the same time, unlike rock and roll, I like the sophisticated harmonic and rhythmic structures, that fall within the parameters of the jazz umbrella. And then with the kind of jazz that I play, you throw in those samba rhythmic variants. So to me, it's just kind of like showing up at a really cool playground.
Very cool. So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. Who do you think you are?
Oh, man. I'm just, I'm just that pretty shy dude, to be honest with you, that lives the average, when none of that's happening, I'm just trying to pay the bills and get through the day like everybody else, running the errands and stuff. So I hope I'm answering that question right.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, just a regular. Yep, just a regular dude. Yep.
Nice. With the dog barking in the background, I love it.
Yeah. Just a regular dude. Dog barking in the background with trying to project positive energy, trying to project positive vibes. And that's really my MO.
Right on. I love it, man. Phil, thank you for taking a minute out. Good luck with the new album and the return to the stage.
Oh, man, thank you so much. And, we'll be in touch, okay?
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Minnesota Florida, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Phil for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
So that's my story about an avocado. Was kinda silly, but it needed be told. It's just what happens when we're all desperados. Perhaps we'll learn this lesson, when we're old.
Neon Jazz.